The Penn State ISD Pan-Hellenic Dance Marathon, affectionately known as THON, is a year-long fundraising and awareness campaign for the fight against childhood cancer that culminates in a 46-hour, no sitting, no sleeping dance marathon. Engaging more than 15,000 volunteers, THON remains the largest student-run philanthropy in the world. To date, we've raised more than $127 million for our sole beneficiary, 4 Diamonds at Penn State Hershey Children's Hospital. With this support, we enhance the lives of children and families impacted by childhood cancer by providing emotional and financial support and ensuring funding for critical research, taking the fight beyond Pennsylvania and spreading hope around the world.
As of today, THON has raised over $173 million towards the initiative. One way they have done this is through the means such as canning. Canning has been a part of THON fundraising since the very beginning. Canning or canning weekends traditionally happen about 2 times in the early fall semester, in which organizations travel in groups of about 10 or more to different places all over the Northeast. Participants arrive at a group member's house Friday evening. The following morning, beginning around 6 or 7, participants flock to their destinations and collect donations from passersby. People donate anything from the loose change in their pockets to $20 bills. They can throughout the weekend, arriving back in State College by Sunday night. Canning has been a beloved fundraising tradition for many THON volunteers over the years, with some large THON organizations raising almost $100,000 per weekend. THON has been operating without incident for years, until 2 recent events changed everything. The first incident occurred in 2011 when freshman Courtney O'Brien passed away from a car accident.
Last Friday, Courtney O'Brien was on her way to go canning in Buffalo, New York for THON. She and 4 other passengers reportedly hit black ice and the car flipped over.
Following this devastating event, it was clear that fundraising for THON was never going to be the same. The initial response was to eliminate canning in the winter weather months of November and December and to hold canning weekends only in September and October. They also took initiatives to promote safer canning practices through the use of an online course shown to every canning member. These new rules were maintained from 2012 until late 2015 when the second tragedy occurred.
THON canning trips are supposed to be positive, but one student didn't make it back to Penn State from her fundraising trip last weekend. Police say Vitalia Sipo died on the turnpike near Philadelphia after being thrown from a car that lost control on a curve and crashed. THON PR director Lily Beatty says it's heartbreaking to lose a volunteer, and they're working with Penn State to make sure future volunteers travel safely.
We are working with the university to determine the best path moving forward and to evaluate the situation to ensure that safe fundraising remains a priority within the organization.
This tragedy began THON's response to phase out canning entirely by 2019. While the official statement came from the THON committee, many students and other concerned community members wondered what role the university played in making this decision. Damon Sims, Vice President of Student Affairs and a principal liaison between THON and Old Main, shared his perspective on the advising of the decision.
You may know that we've experienced a number of tragic student deaths in the context of canning activities. Each time we do, there is considerable reaction from students, parents, and others suggesting that we end canning. Instead, we have worked with THON leaders to facilitate increased safety protocols and practices. But no process can guarantee student safety, and accidents have continued.
The prior attempts by the THON committee to retain canning to fair weather seasons, restrict canning locations to storefronts, and the implementation of mandatory safety courses make it clear that they wanted to retain canning as much as anyone. However, the death of 2 students within only a few years of each other has forced them to the decision that canning trips are not worth the risk they pose. As a result, canning trips will be gradually reduced until they are no longer a component of THON fundraising by 2019. While the decision may seem drastic, it has been met with widespread support. Private donations have increased to account for over half the fundraising totals, offsetting anything lost from canning. Meanwhile, all THON organizations are continuing to work extremely hard to maintain the funds to achieve their goal through alternative means of fundraising. In particular, THON organizations are implementing THONvelopes to emphasize private donations and establishing bake sales and other events to help raise money.
So we're looking into a lot of different kinds of alternative fundraisers. You know, you have 10,000 Villages going on in the hub this week, and all of those things. There's a lot more to our Thon total than just canning. DAR makes up a decent amount of it, over half of our total. So we have a lot more things. You know, we're really pushing Thon envelopes this year, that kind of thing, to still get a really high total.
While alternative fundraising is important to overall Thon totals, the same can also be said that canning is highly beneficial to Thon, especially through Thon-specific organizations. Canning, even though it's being phased out, still represents 1/3 of all fundraising within Thon itself. Not only does canning raise a large profit for Thon, but there is also a social experience gained from the trips. Canning is unique as it helps members of organizations bond over a collective cause. Several Thon volunteers have stated that they've developed some of their best friendships from these experiences. There's an overall consensus from Thon organization members that canning is a beloved part of the Penn State journey.
Oh, absolutely. Both from a Thon outreach perspective, I think it's one of the greatest things to do is to get out there and kind of spread our message. And just as a student and just meeting people and having a good time and kind of raising money for Thon, it's just an all-around awesome experience. Personally, I've only canned with Springfield, but it's the same all across the board. It has such a way of bringing people together. On my first canning trip, I was a terrified sophomore, and I met some of the craziest, most beautiful people in my life that I probably would have been too kind of intimidated to talk to on a normal basis that remained my friends until right now, and I'm still in group meets from my first canning trips and stuff, and we still talk. So it has a way of making the Thon community feel a little bit smaller on a social sense, other than, of course, the money and the outreach. So I think that's the coolest part.
At the end of the day, Thon benefits hundreds of children with cancer. Regardless of whether or not canning remains a component of fundraising, Thon's goal remains the same, of beating pediatric cancer while helping dozens of Thon families along the way.